Oh yeah.
I'll share what's been exciting for me, and that's what we create every morning
Mm.
in the group, um, and to see and hear in people's voices the the clarity with which they can perceive life now. And it doesn't stop, it just continues. And there's, Pascal, you were talking about that you didn't think that your becoming a foreman would happen that fast. Well, for me, it was almost like I could not have anticipated that what I really wanted to to happen in the group would happen that fast.
Mm.
And being part of being able to be witness to people's opening and creating under very difficult circumstances has been such a privilege and has been an inspiration for my own growth. And has
Yeah, that's
helped me
interesting. Yeah.
a lot in my work with my clients.
Mm-hmm.
My
And Alison,
Sorry, Chi, go ahead.
sorry, no, I thought you finished. Sorry, go ahead.
Um, I think my focus is different. There's a broader lens through which I um how can I say this? It's so I see very similar things to what I used to, but it's like, okay, because the languaging is so simple,
Mm.
um, in terms of the model that we work here, I can I can work with people and get them to the same point. Oh no, how do I say this? Okay, let me just be clumsy. So I used to make I used to emphasize that I worked in what was called transpersonal psychology, which is working at the cusp of where the psyche and and the soul meet. And now I don't have to use that language.
Mm-hmm.
I do in my head, of course, but I don't have to use it with my clients because it's just very grounded and in many ways quite logical. So I can use the mind as a tool and to engage, and and then I can drop down into the feeling really quickly. And it's not like I didn't work with feelings before. Of course, that was the main thing. But I think what used to happen is that I would go into the psyche way more than what I needed to. And what's interesting to me is that in the theory that's developed in trauma work now, they know that you don't go into the trauma. And 20 years ago, that's what people were doing. They were digging around to make sure that they had the right diagnosis. And many trauma therapists don't do that anymore because of the research that has been done. And most people know now you don't go for the trauma. You go for what there is in the moment. And you work very slowly and you give a lot of clarity. And that's across all different kinds of, theories or models that people work in, put it that way. That's a better way of putting it. So there's that difference for me, and it makes it so much easier because I really now also in myself, I think because of the growth that's happened in me, I don't feel the sense of, I don't feel the weight that I used to experience. It's a much lighter, experience for me.
Maybe because you dropped the expectation.
This is
Yeah, I don't know that I worked with expectation as much, but I certainly worked with what I thought was needed, and you could say that that's a form of expectation. But in my nature, I'm quite patient in working, in my work environment. But there was still that attachment to the yearning for what I saw as them needing, right? So it's a little bit of a different angle on expectation.
I relate to what you're saying, and it's a very clear sensitivity to have. I can imagine your patience and your patience with your clients to help them do the deep sea diving, especially based on the more former therapies that say, what's the problem?
Mm-hmm.
But now through, more exploration and documentation, teaching and sharing, we're finding that, okay, you don't have to exploit the trauma of the drama to be healed. It's understanding the emotion attached to the memory. And as I'm understanding it, take the wisdom of the experience and you do validate that the experience happened, because now you got this wisdom from it, where before it's like validating the trauma and sitting in there with them, justifying every aspect as to why they're where they are now, and then take them somewhere else. But the mind can do so many different things. It doesn't have to spend 10 years getting over something as hideous as being raped. But what if you could collapse that time from 10 years to a year or 6 months or 10 minutes? How much life it gives back to the person.
Yes. You know, Sindral, thank you for that. Because it's given me opportunity, you know, to re-listen. For myself, I think the difference is that I can allow what you were talking about. I can allow that with more ease, because I guess in myself, I can speak to the alternative more quickly. And so it doesn't always, like the way in which I worked just individually, and I know that it was influenced a lot by my meditation path. So I had that, I think it was an advantage. It certainly felt better for me to work that way. You know, during my training, I couldn't. And then after my training, I could. And so I felt, you know, I had a much wider scope. But still, I know that, you know, when I met Jesse and he started to help me with how he put things together, there was so much more clarity. And I think, you know, there's a well-known kind of saying in yoga teachings, and that is that confidence means nothing without clarity. And with this simple model that we exist in time and space, and there are three things. And if you just learn to begin to be aware of those three things in either of those concepts, and you start to notice that, I mean, like to help somebody with addiction with that with a chemical addiction is unbelievable. You know, our other our automatics are our addictions, right? But with chemical addiction, that's really hard for the body. And then there are all these judgments that come along with it. And if you simplify it like that, I mean, the light bulb that goes on is massive. And in that way, so it might still take a long time, and I think it does, often, okay? But that's not the issue. The issue is the quality that the client experiences in that time, the quality of life.
It's the way, you know, that Jesse breaks it all down, you know, and make it simplify it. You know.
Exactly.
For me, it's been a huge win to what we've been practicing.
Exactly.
And I had a big win yesterday, you know, and I told the story to Jess and Heinz earlier. It was related to an incident, you know, between my two daughters.
Yes.
They were having a fight, and I was just sitting and listening.
Yeah.
And then it all ended when the younger sister she just pulled back from the conversation and left. The big sister was still very in uh, yeah, she was irritated, frustrated, mad, and all that.
Mm.
And wanted to call her younger sister back so that she can tell her younger sister how wrong she was, her behavior and all this and that.
Mm.
Just by asking the right question, just like we're doing here, name it with one word, give it a word, give it a name.
Oh,
And
brilliant.
okay, what one word, what do you feel here right now? "Oh, I'm angry, I'm frustrated, and all that. And then what do you like to feel? And then, you do one resolvable or unresolvable. Do we work from in here or from out there? I, you know, I managed to help her look in
That's
rather than
amazing.
blaming her sister.
Yes,
And,
that's amazing, Chi.
so yeah, we have the knowledge. We have to just take action, use it in situations and with person. Whether it is our near and dear or somebody out there. It's, yeah, it's been an amazing journey for me lately. Yeah, that's what I want to share with Pascal.
Thank you
And
for
you all,
sharing that. Yeah.
you
Congratulations. See,
thank you. Yeah, because it's been a challenge, with my daughters lately, challenging me a lot. And now there's a big shift here, not only with me, but with her too.
Mm.
That's the benefit of showing up every day. And yeah,
yeah, and realizing that what they're fighting against is their ego mind.
Yeah, always pointing outside and away from themselves. But it changed everything when you make them look inside instead of blaming them. And
yeah, and also Chi, the impact of a parent asking that question. What is it that's going on inside of you? That has a massive impact on a child.
She used to, using this blame game, and then the more I try to tell her that that's wrong, and what I've done for her to, through years and years, and now it's not about defending against her, blaming. It's more about asking questions, asking simple questions.
Yeah, I'll end on this because it's been 137 Fahrenheit here, so I'm a little sweaty here. How do you end a war?
Yeah.
By not participating, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Surrender.
Yep.
Knowing that you are perfect, whole, and complete.
Yes. Yeah, I used to say that to myself each morning, each evening before bed. I'm whole, perfect, complete, and happy, and yeah.
On that note, guys, I'm gonna go before I pass out here.
Have a great day, Pascal.
Thanks, Pascal. Great to be with
Have a
you.
great day,
A
guys.
blessed day,
Yeah.
Pascal. Love and hugs.
Wonderful
too.
day, Pascal. Thank you.
Love you guys. Bye.
Love you.
I want to digress a bit that I continue to yearn to learn. But I feel like on those old like maybe those old black and white movies where the scientist is a mad scientist. And, he wants to try the serum on himself. He's just got to know the experience of the serum, even though he has calculated or learned different things, that this is the intention of this serum, to heal or to transform. And I find myself on the receptive end of the learning. Some things you learn to do and they stay kind of like outside of you, but this learning is really like, I don't want it to just gloss over. I really want to understand it. So some of that's for learning, and some of that I have to be aware of it not being ego, because but I just love when I get it though. So I recently finished a series of training with NLP. I never engaged with it before. And I just finished it last week. It was grueling. It was 12 hours a day for 5 days. Mm. So it kept me up from 4 to 4 in session. And I was like, even this grueling schedule is synonymous to loosening up heavy cobwebs. Because I'll stay up from 4 to 4 painting, but nothing else, forget it. But this stuff had me really captivated. And even though I was tired, I was still enthusiastically engaged, just drunk on the learning and loving it. But I'm saying all that to say is it brought together for me a lot of things that I've had bits and pieces of, or a bucket of biorhythm feedback here, and just different exposures that I've enjoyed. And sometimes in the midst of learning things that I didn't know what biorhythm was. I had met a man when I was 14 years old. He says, look, I've got this machine. That man could have been frying my brain for all I knew. But I was, he was it was just exciting for me. And I'm at his house and he's doing these biorhythms and telling me about it. And I had never heard of anything like that before, at 13, 14 years old. Thank God the angels be around me to keep me in the way. Anything could have happened to me there. But that was my exposure, my exposure of self-empowerment, to being able to know how your body is putting out energy, and then how to look at that data and how to rechannel it by the thinking of your mind. Powerful stuff. Didn't study it or anything like that. It was just an experience. But recently going through this NLP training, and it bringing together things that I've learned from the time I had that external awareness at 13 through all the way up to now, is oh my God. It's when you want to know what is life all about, this is this is what all that learning is about. It relates to this, it brings this together. I understand this now. I understand how it works in me. And to know confidently something works for me, and it's a knowingness that it can work for someone else. So I say all that to say this. So you may all be familiar with it, this process called swish. And we practiced it. And it's, some of the scripts I got from Duncan and other things, you don't know, you're reading the script and all you're doing is reading this script, and you don't know that it really works. Because you're just reading, you're learning, you're reading the script. And then when you're the client and someone is just as clumsy with it as you are reading the script, because we're reading the script and we really not real familiar with the script, and we're not familiar with how it works. But then when you get the results, is ego that wants to know how. Like even in other trainings, marketing, sales, and multi-level groups, they said, don't worry about the how, just do the do and get the win, get the results. You don't really have to know how. When people have studied, this works. This script works. It works if you work it. And so someone did the swish reading to me, and I surrendered to it, because I wanted to, experience it. And my thing was to give up fried chicken skin. I eat fried chicken. I love fried chicken skin. Man, if it's crispy, that's the best part of the eating. But I really don't need to be eating it. And it was hard for me to find something I wanted to give up. So I said, okay, fried chicken skin. Not the whole fried chicken. I'll give up the fried chicken skin. And since then, I haven't had fried chicken for one thing. But then when I had baked chicken, I pulled the skin off. And I was like, well, look at there. Lo and behold, it worked. It worked really, really good. And so when you were talking, Allison, about, the involvement with the client and all of that kind of stuff, I think the former, I don't really want to say old because I don't want it to, it has served a tremendous foundation for where we are currently with psychologies. The former training is like the practitioner needed to know. But with our current skills of an awareness, it's like you just need to be a willing instrument to facilitate. And now I go back to Jesse. Jesse said, not coach. Let's not play with the word. Let's play with the word coach, us not being coaches, but being conductors. So that's been resonating with me for a few days as well, meshed with this NLP training. And I'm like, okay, I don't need to know how as much as I need to have faith that it does work. Now that I know the history, it still has to make sense to me as to why it works. But I can learn more about how it works as I'm doing it. As I'm doing it. The more I do it, I understand it more and better by and by. But I can't learn if I don't do it, if I'm waiting to know everything.
It's stepping into the unknown and being willing to dance with something that makes sense, but you don't have evidence of yet.
Yeah. Personal evidence. I have other people's evidence of saying it works, but I don't have the experience of it yet. And although I've done some things strictly by the innocence of this, my spiritual intuitiveness that has worked for people that I've had the honor to work with. So it's like it is all, it is the infinite wisdom that's accessible. But it's like being familiar with that, having that accessibility to it and being it. I'm rambling on. I back to you guys.
I found that very interesting and relevant. And so I'll add this. NLP was something that I was attracted to right in the beginning of my training. And one of the things that attracted me to it was the fact that they had studied creative people. that was the difference between their model and what became academic psychology. And when I started, the positive psychology could maybe have been going already, but I'd never heard of it. So all the research was around creative people. And I also related very much to the hypnosis trainings because of my love of meditation. And I worked with it a lot at one point in my practice. And I had a lot of success with, in the moment, put it that way, with the scripts. And then I don't really know what happened, but it lost its luster for me in a way. And what I realized was that, and this is if my memory serves me correctly, what I started to realize was that things would go a lot better for people, and then it's not so much that they reverted right back. That wasn't my experience. But there was something that didn't quite hold over the years, because I used to see people for a long time. They wouldn't be in therapy all that time, but if we had worked for, say, 6 months, they would go away, and the next year, then they would come back again. And with people that had experienced a lot of trauma, they would be in therapy for 2 to 3 years. And there was just something that didn't connect well enough for me. And as I said, it would get them through hurdles that were substantial. And that was amazing. But then it was the integration of the rest that still needed a lot of work. So I think the thing that pulled me in a lot with Jesse's work also was his realization of how important people's own words were. And also, I also did a trauma technique training here in Canada with an amazing man. And the process is called autosomatic technique. And it is very much what we often do in the morning, and that is you name the feeling, and then you be with that feeling. And in the process, you do different things, but it's that initial experience of allowing people to sit with their feeling in their body. In the technique itself, it's, because it's a trauma technique, and you're working with what's in the moment. You don't work with a memory of anything, you work with what's in the moment. And you allow the body to process it. And that's a very different kind of a concept for people. They don't realize that their bodies can process their feelings for them if they hand it over basically. And initially it's very scary for people, so you do it together. And then there are guidelines, there are often things that happen for people. They will either hear things or they will see things. And then there are guidelines for what they do with that. And the guidelines are all pointing to the fact that they've got the power to work with what comes. And that was also the emphasis, that it was theirs. They made their own scripts. And the power of that for me was, it seemed to last longer, put it that way. So the model itself definitely served me a lot. And it's really interesting and very useful in what it points to, right? And the overall emphasis of NLP is that the power is inside. It's not outside.
Exactly. For me, that's exactly. But like your depth and your experience with it, is your exposure is much more, I think, than what mine has been to work in NLP. But I'm finding the scripts gives me like the generality of it.
Yes.
And be effective.
Yes.
But as I integrate with it and understand it and facilitate with it more and more, then like something that you said much earlier in this conversation is that in your mind, you didn't have to jump through all of the mental hoops and loops of everything just because of your knowingness. You was able to take them right through, be the conductor to take them like straight through based on your knowledge and intention. But without your knowledge and intention and your experience, you would have been finding your way around too. And sometimes maybe that's through the trauma in order to apply the right awareness of process and technique. But with experience, it's like, like, and to trust your intuitiveness more, know how it speaks to you, how their words speak to you without you being emotionally engaged to go, oh, okay, well, we can just do this. And it can be done without you actually having to have them do it. But because of your energy in that space with them, certain clicks are done. I do it with my daughter in the kitchen. Like, she's cooking and the objective is to enjoy what she's cooked and not to have to labor afterwards. So I come in and do things that, that work in sync with her so that by the time she's done, the kitchen is clean and a great meal is served. Right? So she doesn't see that I've, put the butter out and let it get soft, so it's easier for her to stir. Those little things is to get the results. But now, her last time in the kitchen, she was like cleaning as she went. So I was like, it was nothing for me to do. So like I was doing my stuff in the background with her intentions in the foreground. And now it's like, okay, it's a whole different arena. Her game is like totally different.
Mm.
And I was like, okay, that works for me. So as the practitioner, I didn't have to, it was just my intention.
Mm. Mm. Mm.
And now it's a shortcut to enjoy her cinnamon rolls. I just gotta wait out in the living room. So back to the practitioner and client view, I'm excited to use these scripts that I have
Mm.
because I know what I know the understanding of how the mind works, how emotions work, how the triggers work, looking at the body language,
Mm.
you know, and it's like learning to drive a stick shift. I had to think of every little thing before, but there's some automation in me, like
Mm.
some automation occurred in my daughter, like I'm surmising some automations have happened in you over the years that can really help make it a beautiful experience. It's like in school, they would never let us use a calculator. Now you better not go anywhere without knowing how to
Without
have
it.
access to a calculator. Use the
Yeah.
tools. It's not
Yeah.
cheating, it's progress.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I'm excited to use, like different scripts until they become more innate and more internal with me. And
Mm.
I'll make it my own flavor
Mm.
and
Mm.
trust that that is part of the process for me and for them.
Mm.
As soon as I get some working on getting some paid clients.
It's gonna come, Sandra. You'll see.
And so you can, as always, you can always practice here so that it does become the automatics. And we are a very willing audience,
Mm.
or like willing,
Participants.
players,
Yeah,
you know.
for sure.
So
I totally forgot about practicing. I've been on the receptive end so much.
it's and this is a space for it. And it's in the demonstration, the scene of it, and then you can like point. It's a asset you could point to. It's like, oh, this was me beginning it.
Mm.
Thank you. Oh man, thank you.
And so then I'll answer Pascal's question. As he like, what's been happening? Where are you? And this is to honor you, Sindrel, with your wondering of, did you say eternal or internal? And just you speaking that was a spiritual awakening to the eternal.
Hallelujah.
And
Mm-hmm.
and so like a week before this, I'd been like, the question is like, do I and do people, are we looking for are we looking for, I'll use God just as the word, but whatever you want to put in there, it's not like I put God in there, but it's easiest to understand. It's like, am I looking out there for her? And it was like my whole childhood was. And that was my frustration.
Mhm.
It was like, where's God? Well, she's in heaven. Well, heaven's out there.
Mhm. Mhm.
And so the eternal, like there's really, like, I haven't used that word, haven't thought about that word. It's like not very big in my vocabulary, but when you said it, it was like, that completes the three.
Mhm.
And so it was like, oh, and it was like, and I would say, like, thinking wise, I knew, like, my higher powers, super conscious God, um, was in me, but this, you opened it to a whole deeper level. And so I was able to practice. And when I've, like, over the, well, first it was like there was this breakthrough, and it was like, oh, it's like I'm in the middle of this breakthrough of, like, seeing this, and then not like from a relative sense of view, it's like a chaos breaks out around me. Interesting, right? But I had enough.
Yes.
I mean, that's what happens in breakthroughs, right?
The chaos.
Yeah. But it was all, and so it was the opportunity for me to see how someone else orients to out there in here. And, like, for me to connect to the eternal. But first, it's like what I notice is that people need to see the difference between in here and out there. First, like that, the balance between those two before we can go deep into the eternal. But people have, like, it makes sense. I shared it with a guy yesterday, and it was all day long. Like, he chatted, like, text me back and forth. He's like, that shift changed everything. Chi, like, I woke up this morning, and it's like I'm still going through the I'm still going through the processing, right? That awakening, and it's like then things are readjusting afterwards. So that's processing to me. And so, like, there's things that are, like, normally don't weigh on me that weighing on me. You know? And I come in this morning, and she has just that excitement of how it worked in his family. And it's like, oh, thank you, Chi. That is just what I need to hear.
Thank you. The process is released here in our family. So it means so much. It means everything.
Yes. And, like, that's what we can do here together, like, as we flow between conductor, player, and the audience. We are just conducting we're just conducting in here, but we're stuck out there. Because we don't see it. We don't see that there's a difference. We're just reacting, and our reacting is to what's out there. And then it looks like blame, judge, anger, frustration, right? That's just like, that's the result of out there. it's like so simple, and it's like we've talked around it and through it, but it was like I was really like I didn't have a good sense of what to do with gathering. But when we came to the word, it's like we're gathering eternal. We're gathering in here are eternal. That's what we're gathering together at Fireside.
I want to say here, I just want to feel those words that you just spoke about gathering the eternal here. It's recognizing for me the eternalness, the substantive eternalness, because God outside of me or heaven outside of me is it's like it's somewhere to journey to, and the more I try to go in that direction, it gets that much further away from me.
Yeah.
And if I'm fortunate, I may have a spiritual blip that makes me feel okay. I've had a quantum leap that I can't even measure because it's still outside of me. But here it's like we get a chance to play with ingratiating the internalness of us, in us, that we're homogeneously composed of, and understand it as an experience, as the experience of living and being and creating, and in that infinity, and it not be so elusive. In the Bible, it talks about, and going to church and at one, be at one. God is one. You be at one with God. It's like, how do you do that?
Mm.
But here it's like putting words and feelings and vision and that flow of life in you to give it, to understand the energy and live the energy, be aware of it as the energy. I learned in high school, everything's energy. It's just in different forms. But I wasn't taught how to convert it. I wasn't taught how to dance with it.
Nope.
I wasn't taught how to think with it. I was taught we're having a test next week on know these equations and blah, blah, blah. But now it makes relative sense to me to appreciate those concepts that some were shared with me through other disciplines of education, but they didn't mean to me relative to me being a human being and how to really be a spiritual person having a human experience.
Being energy to take the action necessary to receive the feedback. adjust to the being, adjust to the action, receive the feedback. Being, action, feedback. Adjust, being, action, feedback. Adjust, being, action, feedback. Adjust. That's the power of now, of present. And so I was going through it was obvious. It was like the chaos, right? The chaos was ended up with me painting not joyfully, but for validation of a good husband. Not that I wanted to paint, no, but it was a sour mood. Yeah, but I did it, and I knew the whole time. It was like, it's like I just have, like, she's doing it to me. I couldn't get out of it. I finished painting, right, and it was like I got out of it. Yeah, well, didn't get out of it, but it was just still obvious. Like it's so easy to just put it out there. Not that I'm responsible for how I'm reacting to it. And even in the awareness of it, I didn't want to change it. And that's interesting, right? It's like the conflict. It's like the conflict of what's in here and the conflict of what's out there. It's that conflict.
And it's also the mirroring of that conflict internally.
Yep.
Between our different parts, right?
It's, if we see it as that mirror, as it is, it's like that's how you let go of that judgment of it. But then you judge yourselves, and like it opens up all sorts of things. But it is the mirror. It's like if we can see it as the mirror, so the mirror, the reflection is what's doing it to me. And then we really have to look, it's like, well, what's in the reflection? The reflection is doing it to me. And it's like, well, the reflection is just what I'm doing, who I'm being. Right? The reflection's just the feedback. We do with it what we want. That's the free will. Or choice, as we call it. Because only when that battle is quiet, so when that battle is quieted down, when that chaos has simmered, only then can we begin to look into what does the eternal say.
I find when I'm in those internal battles, I need to remind myself that there's the eternal.
Yep.
And it gets closer now, you know. I might still sit with the battle because that ego mind just will not, it's grasped on and it does not want to let go.
Yep.
What doesn't want to let go?
So it's a part of us. Well, it's a part of me which wants to, as Jessie was describing, sit in the misery, you know, sit in the frustration and the anger and the what I call the aggressive fuck you part of me.
Okay, can you hold that right there?
Yes.
So sometimes sitting in stuff, I perceive that as avoid that. You don't want to do that, but that's sometimes you have to sit in it to read the feedback. But be in it to be aware of the feedback, not for, like Jessie said a minute ago, it's doing it to me. The circumstances are doing it to me. But to sit in the feedback and then look at it from the eternal in order to have that sage perspective, that superconscious perspective, to understand, okay, that's just data. Okay, now what reflection do you want to create? And that's like I'm right in that slither right now of really the empowerment of the taking those fine hair steps that make a difference, that you really can't overlook and nobody will ever see but you, because that's the invisible veil that is the next step. However insignificant it may appear to be, it's crucial because you can't take the second step till you take the next step.
So I'm going to add in here. It's like we never know how big the breakthrough will be when we begin the breakthrough. And that goes for ours and that goes for anyone's. Like that's, as the conductor, if we're conducting breakthroughs, we don't know like what will trigger it, what won't, when, or how big. That's why we go for the breakthrough.
Because once you crack a shell of an egg, you can I ain't never seen it put back together.
Bingo. Like when you find that crack, that's all. That's what it is. It's like that crack. And it's like, dink, there it is.
So I put the painting in the chat too. My mind doesn't automatically record, but I know, Jessie, you were saying about the breakthrough when it gave me the thought of, like once you're settling, well, not settling, once you have that breakthrough, and you talked about chaos. So all of those stones at the bottom is the breakthrough of chaos. And that's an organ down at the bottom. And it's that organ represents the embryo, and it reflects the heart. So from the embryo, in the beginning, it's the embryo, and now it's like the heart of the adult taking conscious awareness of self. And when you do that, the top part is all the, indoctrinations and letters and words and socializations that are truth, false truths, but truths or data that we grew up on. And then it comes the breakthrough. That's the sword. It's just when you get that breakthrough, you don't go back, and then it shudders and brings about that earthquake when you have that expansive awareness that you can't go back, and you wouldn't really want to go back, but you kind of have to like be in a wobble and get your balance. After earthquake, things kind of get disheveled and dishes fall out the cabinets and everything. And then you decide, what are you going to let be in your life? What are you going to replace in your life? What are you going to get out of your life by not choosing it anymore? And so we get to get our equilibrium back, but with a new heart, with a new mind, because it can't go back to being an embryo in this realm of life anymore.
Mm.
And then you don't know. Then you're at the leading edge. You don't know.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you for putting that in chat. I mean, in screen share. This was a long, hard piece for me. And I had even signed it and I gave it to my son because of who and what he is. And then I was like, no, bring it back. I need to embellish it some more ways. And what I had to emphasize mostly when I got it back was the sword of truth and righteousness and clarity and expansion.
Mm. It's really impactful syndrome. It's striking. That's the word I would use for it.
Mm.
Thank you, Ralph.
Cinderella, it almost, to me, it appears like there's ashes on there. And for me, the symbol I got was the ashes due to expansion.
Mm.
Yes, yes. Volcanic eruption of
Mhm.
plating
Cool.
existence.
It's
You know,
beautiful.
Mm-hmm.
that is actually gravel that I got from an area that is geology. What is that, from the land?
Mhm.
Geographically identified as the center of the earth.
Wow. Wow.
Well,
Mm.
and your story amplifies the value.
Mm.
To me, it's like I said, it's like I see it as breakthrough now. Thank you. Mhm.
Wow.
Well, thank you all.
Yes.
Thank you all.
Beautiful chat today.
Yeah.
Yes.
All have a
Yes.
blessed day.
Have a good rest tonight, Heinz and Chi.
Thank you.
You all have a wonderful day.
Yeah.
Thank
You
you.
too.
Peace,
Thanks, everybody.
Bye all.
Bye.
everyone.
Bye bye.
Bye bye.